Hey guys, what's going on? This is Joey with Harvesting Strength, and I wanted to talk to you all pretty quick. Not gonna take a long video, and I've realized the more I focus on this stuff that if it's too long of a video, people kind of get bored of it. But if it's a shorter video, like maybe 5 to 6 minutes, it's easier to kind of settle into, and it kind of hits a little bit faster. But nonetheless, I want to talk about the central nervous system. I think one of the hardest things, somebody asked me today what was one of the most cringeworthy things that I could experience when it comes to like the talk of anything sports performance wise. And one of the things I thought about is when people squat in the or when people curl in the squat rack. But the next thing I really thought about was how loosely we use the term CNS fatigue. And I'm not trying to sound like a mad scientist or that I am the all be all and I know all the answers or anything like that. But I just know that I feel like I can have an opportunity to have a platform to kind of talk a little bit more about a scientific approach to make it a little bit more worthwhile versus just talking about how I feel. And it works because you can really feel X, Y, and Z and just not base anything on facts. So when it comes to CNS fatigue, I think a lot of it has to do when you hit higher maximum values in percentages. I know that one of the articles I was reading by Carmen Bott, Central Nervous System Fatigue, the Effects on Speed, Power Athletes from Simply Faster, she was mentioning that when you stay in a range of 65 to 80%, that the recovery period is much faster. They typically say that when you do hit that wall of fatigue from the central nervous system standpoint, when you do hit that wall, when you're at a higher value, it might exceed that 48-hour window. And it's also documented that it could be up to 10 days for you to recover. I think there is some confusion out there. So, if we're talking about a 65 to 80% window that you can recover from within a certain rep range, then I don't see how hard it could be to, jump back into your next routine as long as you have maximized rest. So here's where I'm kind of coming with it. Let's say we're talking about someone who's hitting, 5 sets of 8 at 70%, and maybe they're just sore because they're not used to that rep range, or they're starting a new block, and then they start saying things like, man, my central nervous system's fatigued, I'm maxed out, I gotta really lay low. I think you're misunderstanding the situation. It's just honestly soreness. I think we can only reach that CNS fatigue if we really know how to tap into it and maximize it. And someone who's a little bit more aware of their movement can have better coordination with their movement. And what I mean by that is recruitment of the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the motor units, being able to actually get all those neurons engaged and in the movement. They talk about how when you perform more movement and more exercise, you actually can build more neurons in your body. So there's not like a limitation per se. Well, I'm sure there could be scientifically, but you can grow the amount of neurons that occur. And I think that's where we see finesse with movement. Maybe if we're talking about like a sprinter or a hurdler or someone who just looks really refined in their movement, it just could be the opportunity that they exercise and they perform that movement so much that they can develop that connection between the mind and the body and have more of a neuromuscular drive to allow the muscle to be engaged and to do things that maybe a traditional person couldn't. But to get back to this whole CNS fatigue, I really like to not only talk about, maybe the confusion or the misunderstanding is, but also to offer solutions. So something that I've really enjoyed doing with some of the clients that I have that I think can actually hit that level of central nervous system fatigue, I like to do kind of a staggered approach. So I really like to work with people for a 16-week block, or not block, but a 16-week cycle. So they have block 1, 2, 3, 4. We start off with the hypertrophy phase, but I also promote corrective movement. So, refining, your squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead. I feel like those are big movements for anybody, strongman, powerlifting, just basic strength or basic day-to-day functionality, being able to push, pull, lift over your head, and to pull weight off the ground. I think that's all very functional. But The first phase has to be with the growth and development of it. So we're not really seeing a lot of central nervous system fatigue unless there's kind of a hybrid or unique instance of, promoting power in that phase, although I like to keep it a little bit vanilla. But then when we get to strength and the power phase, so the second and third block, I like to go, obviously with lower reps, sets of 5, triples, doubles. And what tends to happen to people is they really do well in the strength block where it's sets of 3 because we're starting at a little bit of a lower percentage, especially people who are reoccurring with the training I do. I try to see, values they've hit before. So let's say somebody's best triple on squat was 500. I'll start that first week of the block, maybe like 470, 475, a little bit of a lighter percentage just to, give them some glory, let them be successful, but not tap them out. But then phase it to where hopefully by week 3 or 4, they're exceeding that best value from before. So maybe we're going for 505 or 510. So I try to pace it out. But when we get to the power phase and the championship phase, obviously as that time happens, the volume decreases. So there's kind of a taper, but not. But I like to do this staggered approach where, if it's a 4-week cycle, maybe the first week is squat focused. So it's a heavy double on squat. You'll do your bench day. I don't think how I feel about it, bench, you can, hit that wall of the fatigue and stuff like that. But I just feel like the squat and deadlift, with it being such big muscle groups, maybe you can get away with benching a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more often, but, I'll still throw in some stuff to change it up. But nonetheless, let's just focus on the big movements in squat and deadlift. So if you're a powerlifter or a strongman or anybody strength-based, that first week of squat might be more heavy focus. And then we'll do the bench. And then when we come to deadlift day, that's 48 hours afterwards. I'll do day 1, day 2, break, day 3, day 4, a 4-day split, break in between. On day 3 with the deadlift, I'll probably do it where it's like, hey, we're gonna go with a lighter submaximal value. It just depends on who the person is and where they are with it. But I'll say, hey, instead of doing heavy triples, we're gonna do triples, but we could do it for 6 sets, 8 sets. I've even had it where I do 15 sets, but obviously at that point, the percentages drop a lot. And it's just a lot about power, so that we get the motor going, because hopefully that accessory-based day of submaximal lifts can bleed into the next week. So then on week 2, it's a lighter squat. So think about it. First week, heavy squat, light deadlift for speed, and then a light day for squat, and then a heavy deadlift. Now you've gotten a lot of time to recover, and then we can focus on heavy deadlifts that day. And then if we're in that block, the 3rd week, I could do something to where it's like, hey, squat and deadlift are kind of like at a lower percentage, and we're just, focusing on explosion and stuff. And then the 4th week, I'll say, hey, we're going for a max squat double and a max deadlift double. Or I could say the max squat double happened week 3, and then the max deadlift double happened week 4. It just really depends on where I am with it. But I also like to understand as well as when you compete, it's gonna be tough. So with powerlifting, you're gonna squat heavy before you deadlift heavy. And when you strongman, that's a full day or 2 days of just nonstop brutal action. So sometimes in the programming, I think you kind of have to get over it and, just quit being weak-minded and weak-willed, and just understand, hey, some weeks are gonna be harder and some weeks are gonna be easier. I explained this to someone before. I think there could be a confusion too, where it's like, hey, if you think like this is too tough, or you're worried about blowing your CNS out, which you won't, if you think this is too tough, then I think you're just into working out. You're not into training. So I think something about this too is you can stagger your approach. Obviously you can recycle things where it's like, hey, when you peak, you got to start back over. You can't stay in a peak phase all the time. And another thing too is you just got to change your mindset. I think the people who are more in tune with their mindset and can, start to think and anticipate movement, and like on a heavy deadlift day, just think, I got to get this weight, and you keep thinking about it and mentally rehearsing it. Now you're getting the mind and the body to connect better, and you're getting more of a neuromuscular drive, so that everything's firing off. And for those people who have stayed along in this video for 9 minutes and 45 seconds, I'm gonna give you a little tip, okay? The next time you start to go into a peak phase, I want you to do plyometrics before you do a heavy deadlift or a squat. There's research that came out that kids who walked for 30 minutes before tests did much better. I think 10 or 11 to 22% better than their peers. And the reason why they did better was because their brain was active and was firing off, and their body was firing off, so the brain was firing off. So if you could do a leg warm up, do 3, 4, 5, 6 singles of whether it's a box jump or a seated vertical jump or a static vertical jump, anything explosive for just a few singles, and then go into your heavy stuff, I bet you're firing off harder than you ever thought you would. I did that today and I really enjoyed it. I've been doing it for this whole last block for my deadlift and bench training. So I really enjoyed it and I think it's a great tool. So think about these things. Hopefully you can apply them. I ask you share this video with someone else who might be interested in this conversation about central nervous system fatigue. Central nervous system fatigue, please share it, broadcast it to people and let them know, hey, are you really fatigued or are you just making excuses? And to listen to the video and to hear some of the stuff I have to say about it. And if you have more questions or you want to talk about it more, or if you want to give me a hard time because you think I'm just being a little pompous, you can contact me at harvestingstrength.com or my Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, J_Lucero89. Thanks a bunch and talk to you guys soon.